She had been in the middle of the road for so long that the motorcycle tires left marks when braking. And when he saw her eyes, he understood. That child wasn't lost. She was running from something that was still breathing nearby. But what she whispered made the Harley's engine seem silent. Because in 7 words, that 9-year-old girl had just destroyed the only certainty Edge had. That this road was safe. And now going back meant encountering what she had been trying to escape. If you believe that some roads hold secrets that only bikers dare to face, subscribe now. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Because this story happened closer to you than you think. Edge wasn't expecting to brake. The road cut through the Arizona desert like an ancient scar, and he had driven it dozens of times without seeing anything but cracked asphalt and rusty signs. But when the silhouette appeared, small, motionless in the center of the lane, instinct prevailed over speed. He braked hard on the motorcycle, and the rear tire squealed on the hot ground. The girl didn't move. She was barefoot. Her light blue dress was torn at the knee. Her brown hair was plastered to her sweaty face. Her thin arms were crossed in front of her body as if she were holding something invisible. Edge slowly removed his helmet. The leather creaked in the silence. He looked around. Nothing. No cars, no houses. Just the heat rising from the asphalt and the wind carrying dust. "Hey," he called, but his voice came out harsher than he intended. She looked up, green, too deep-set for her age. "You can't go past," she said, her voice trembling but firm. Edge frowned. He got off the motorcycle and stopped 3 meters away from her, his heavy boots hitting the ground. "Why?" The girl swallowed hard. Her hands trembled. She glanced over his shoulder at the empty road behind them and then back at his face. "Because if you walk by, he'll know I told him." Edge felt his stomach clench. He knew that kind of fear. He'd seen it before. In battered women, in children hiding in gas station bathrooms, in people who knew that speaking out was signing their own death warrant. "Who's going to know?" he asked, lowering his voice, trying not to scare her any further. She shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. "He said that if I spoke up, he would do it again. And with my sister too." Edge's chest clenched. He took another step, slowly, as if he were approaching a wounded animal. "Where is your sister now?" The girl pointed back, in the direction he had come from. About 5 kilometers behind her, there was a trailer park. He had driven right past it without even looking. "There," she whispered, "but he's there too." And then she said the name. A name Edge didn't recognize, but one that sounded like poison. And it was in that second that he realized this child wasn't blocking the road out of fear. She was blocking it because she knew that if he continued, no one else would come back to save her. Edge crouched down in front of her, slowly, without haste, as if he had all the time in the world, even knowing that he didn't. The girl didn't back away, but her body was stiff, her shoulders raised, her hands still crossed on her chest, as if she were holding her heart in place. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice low, almost a murmur. She hesitated. She looked at the ground, at her own hands, at the empty horizon. "Riley." "Riley?" he repeated slowly, letting the name settle in the warm air. "I'm Edge, and you don't need to be afraid of me." She looked up again. This time they were red, wet, but steady. "Everyone says that," she whispered. "Before they leave." Edge felt something break inside him. He knew that pain, the pain of someone who learned too soon that promises are just words, that adults lie, that nobody stays. He didn't say anything for a few seconds. He just stood there, crouching in the middle of the road, looking at that child, who had decided that he was her last chance. And then he did something he never did. He took the glove off his right hand. Slowly, scarred skin appeared. Burn marks, old cuts, a faded tattoo on the wrist. Still here. He reached out his hand to her. I won't promise you anything I can't keep, Riley, but if you take me to your sister, I swear I won't leave until I'm sure you're both safe. Riley looked at his hand, then at his face, searching for a lie, searching for an excuse, searching for a trick. But all she saw was a tired man, his body burdened with travel, who looked as if he had seen too many people die alone. She placed her small, dirty hand in his, and Edge felt the weight of it, as if he had just signed a contract in blood. He doesn't let anyone in, she said, her voice breaking, and he always knows when someone's nearby. Who is he, Riley? She took a deep breath. The tears finally fell. My stepfather. But everyone calls him Snake. Edge didn't need to ask anything else. The nickname said it all, and the silence that followed was heavier than any words. Because he knew that men named Snake never let go of what was theirs. And Riley had just become his too. Edge slowly let go of her hand, but did not stand up. He stood there, crouched down, looking at the small face that bore invisible marks. He knew this type of scar. The ones no one sees. The ones that hurt the most. How long have you been running away from him? He asked, his voice devoid of judgment. Riley wiped her face with the back of her hand. Since my mother died. It's been 4 months. 4 months. Edge swallowed hard. 4 months of a child trying to survive alone with a monster in the house. And your sister? Maya, she's 6. Riley lowered his head. She doesn't understand yet. She still thinks he's good when he's sober. Edge closed his eyes for a second. He felt the heat rising from the road, the smell of burning asphalt, the dry wind hitting the back of his neck. But none of that mattered, because he was back. Back to that trailer in Kentucky, back to being 12 years old, back to the sound of breaking bottles and his stepfather's voice yelling that he was a dead weight, back to the smell of cigarettes and fear. He opened his eyes. Riley was still there, looking at him, waiting for him to say something, anything. I understand you, he said, his voice lower than he intended. More than you realize. She tilted her head, curious, but she didn't ask. Children who grow up in war know when not to force answers. Edge stood up. His joints cracked. He looked at the motorcycle, then at the empty road behind him, then at the horizon ahead. There was a choice there. Move on, leave Riley behind, pretend not to see, pretend not to hear, like everyone else did, like he himself had done before. Or turn the motorcycle around, go back 5 kilometers, enter that trailer park, and confront a man who was probably armed, probably high, and definitely dangerous. And he knew what happened to those who got involved in fights that weren't theirs. He had the scars to prove it. But then Riley spoke again, so softly it was almost lost in the wind. I tried calling the police. 3 times. They came once. Snake said I was lying, that I was troubled, that my mother always said that. She paused, and they believed him. Edge felt his blood boil. He knew this story too. He knew how the system failed, how men like Snake knew exactly what to say, how children like Riley were called liars until the day they turned up dead. He put his helmet back on. Riley's eyes widened. Are you leaving? Edge got on the motorcycle. He started the engine. The roar filled the desert. And then he turned the motorcycle around, facing the path from which he had come. Riley let out a trembling sigh, half relief, half fear. Climb up, he said, extending his hand. And it was at that moment that Riley understood, for the first time in her life, someone had chosen to come back. For her. The trailer park appeared like an open wound in the desert. 12 rusty trailers, arranged in a semicircle around a dirt yard. Broken cars, piled up tires, an overturned barbecue grill. Heavy silence, broken only by the sound of a TV on somewhere. Edge turned off the motorcycle before entering. He left it parked on the side of the road, hidden behind a fallen billboard advertising a motel that no longer existed. Riley descended slowly, her legs trembling. She pointed to the third trailer on the left. White. Or it had been white. Now it was more gray than anything else. "That's him," she whispered. Edge looked around. No movement, no curious neighbors. Nobody cared about what happened inside. They never had. "Stay here," he said firmly. "If you hear anything, run. Understand? Don't come back. Just run." Riley opened his mouth to protest, but he was already walking. His boots made too much noise on the gravel ground. He walked slowly, trying to control the sound, but each step sounded like a drum. When he got close to the window, he stopped. He listened. There was a male voice inside, deep, drawn out, saying something Edge couldn't understand. And then, a laugh. Cold. The kind of laugh that has no humor, just cruelty. He moved closer. He peered through the dirty window. Inside, the scene was worse than he had imagined. Maya was sitting on the floor, her back to the wall, knees to her chest, empty eyes. She had a recent purple bruise on her left arm, and Snake was standing in front of her, tall, too thin, tattoos creeping up his neck, deep-set bloodshot eyes. He held a bottle of cheap whiskey in his right hand and, in his left, something that made Edge's stomach churn. A belt. "I already told you," Snake spat the words, leaning toward the child, "that you're not leaving this trailer without my permission, but you let your little sister escape, didn't you?" Maya didn't answer. She just stared at the floor, trembling. Snake buckled up his belt, and Edge didn't think. He just acted. He kicked the door hard. The rotten wood shattered like wet cardboard. The lock flew off. The noise echoed inside the trailer like a gunshot. Snake turned his head slowly, his eyes fixed on Edge. And then he smiled. "Who the hell are you?" Edge entered. He occupied the space. He blocked the exit. "Someone you shouldn't have angered." Snake dropped the bottle on the floor. It rolled to the wall and stopped. But he was still holding his belt, and now his look was different. No, longer surprised. Calculating. "You're in my house, brother, and this is a family matter." "No more," Edge said, his voice low and dangerous. Snake took a step forward, slowly, testing, looking for weakness. "You think you're a hero? You think you're going to come here and save these little sluts?" He spat on the ground. "Their mother was a whore, and they're going to be just like them." Edge clenched his fists. He felt the anger rising like fire in his throat. But he didn't move. Not yet. "Let the girl go," he said. Snake looked at Maya, then at Edge, and laughed, loudly, contemptuously. "Or what? What are you going to do, old man? Hit me? Kill me?" He opened his arms. "Go ahead, but when the police arrive, who do you think they'll believe? A dirty biker? Or a family man?" And that's when Edge understood. Snake wasn't stupid. He knew exactly how the game worked. And he had been winning for years. Edge didn't move. He stood there, frozen in the broken doorway, staring at Snake as if measuring every inch of him, every movement, every breath, calculating how long it would take to break that man in two. But he also knew that Snake was right. If he laid a finger on him now, without proof, without witnesses, without anything but the word of a frightened child, Edge would be the one walking away in handcuffs, and Maya and Riley would be back in his hands. That's what the system did. It protected monsters with surnames, and it crushed anyone who tried to do the right thing. Snake took another step forward. Now he was less than 2 meters away, still holding the belt in his hand. "I'm waiting, hero," he taunted. "Hit me. Go ahead. Show this little girl here what kind of man you are." Maya was huddled in the corner, her eyes wide, staring at Edge as if he were the only thing standing between her and hell. And Edge knew that any decision he made now would define the rest of their lives. If he hit her, Snake would call the police. He knew people. He had an alibi. He had neighbors who would testify that he was a good father trying to protect his daughters from a dangerous stranger. If he did nothing, Maya would stay here. And Riley too. And in 6 months, maybe a year, one of them would turn up dead, and everyone would feign surprise. He closed his eyes for a second. He took a deep breath, and when he opened his eyes again, he didn't look at Snake. He looked at Maya. "Do you want to leave?" he asked bluntly. No beating around the bush. Maya blinked, confused, scared, but then she nodded, slowly, afraid the movement would make Snake explode. Edge looked back at Snake. "I'm not going to touch you," he said, his voice calm, almost cold. "But I'm not going anywhere either. And if you touch her again, I'll come back. And next time, I won't come alone." Snake laughed, but the laugh was tense now, forced. "You're bluffing." "Maybe," Edge said, "but do you want to risk it?" Silence. Snake tightened his grip on the belt. His joints cracked. He looked at Maya, then at Edge, trying to decide if it was worth it. And it was at that moment that Riley appeared in the doorway. She disobeyed. She didn't run. She went inside. And when Snake saw her, something changed on his face. "You bitch," he hissed, his face contorted with rage. "You called him here, didn't you?" Riley didn't answer, but Edge saw her body tremble, and Snake advanced. Not in Edge, in Riley. His free hand extended, his fingers like claws, going straight for her neck, and Edge moved, fast. He grabbed Snake's wrist in midair. He twisted it, hard, enough to make him drop his belt and scream. "I told you," Edge growled, his voice low and dangerous, "that you weren't going to touch them." Snake tried to break free, but Edge held on tight, eye to eye. And this time there was no bluff. There was a promise. And Snake saw for the first time that perhaps he had chosen the wrong fight. Snake recoiled when Edge released his wrist. He rubbed his hand, breathing heavily. His eyes filled with hatred, but he didn't advance again. At least not yet. Edge turned to Riley and Maya. "Get out. Now." Riley took her sister's hand and pulled her toward the door. Maya hesitated, looking back as if expecting Snake to follow them. But he stood there, watching, planning. Edge was the last to leave, backwards, never taking his eyes off Snake. And when he stepped out of the trailer, he felt the hot desert air hit his face. But it brought no relief, only the feeling that something was about to collapse. Because men like Snake wouldn't accept defeat. They were just waiting for the right moment to counterattack. Riley and Maya ran to the motorcycle. Edge followed them, fast but controlled. He mounted. He put Riley in front and Maya behind. He gripped the handlebars. "Hold on tight," he said. And it accelerated. The engine roared, gravel flew. They exited the trailer park in seconds, leaving a cloud of dust behind. But Edge looked in the rear-view mirror, and he saw Snake coming out of the trailer with a phone in hand. 10 minutes later, Edge stopped his motorcycle at an abandoned gas station. Broken windows, rusty pumps, a metal roof creaking in the wind. Riley and Maya went downstairs. Their legs were trembling. Maya was crying softly. Riley tried to appear strong, but Edge could see the crack in her mask. He crouched down in front of them. "Are you all right?" Riley nodded. Maya just stared at the floor. Edge sighed. He ran a hand over his face. He knew he had just crossed a line. He had entered a man's house. He had laid a hand on him. Even if it was to protect the girls, legally, he was wrong. And Snake knew that. Edge took his cell phone out of his pocket. He thought about calling someone, The club, the police, anyone. But before he could dial, he heard the sound. Sirens, far away, but getting closer. Riley's eyes widened. He called the police, didn't he? Edge didn't answer, but his look said it all. And then 3 vehicles appeared on the road, blue and red. Lights cutting through the desert. They stopped around the gas station surrounding the motorcycle. 4 police officers got out, hands on their holsters, eyes on Edge. "Stay away from the children and put your hands where I can see them," one of them shouted. Edge slowly raised his hands. Riley stepped forward. "He didn't do anything. He saved us." But the police officer didn't hear, or didn't want to hear. "Sir, turn around and put your hands on your head." Edge obeyed. He knew how this worked. He knew that resisting would only make things worse. The handcuffs clicked onto his wrists. Riley screamed. Maya started crying louder. Edge was placed inside the vehicle. The last thing he saw before the door slammed shut was Riley's face. Destroyed, broken, because she had believed him. And now it seemed that even he had failed. Edge sat in the cell for 3 hours. No window, no clock. Just the hum of fluorescent light and the smell of mold and dried urine. He didn't say anything during the interrogation. Not because he was guilty, but because he knew that anything he said would be used against him. It always was. The police officer who interrogated him was young, nervous. He tried to appear tough, but Edge could see the insecurity. He asked questions that seemed rehearsed. "Why were you in the trailer? How did you meet the girls? Mr. Brennan said that you broke into his house and threatened him. Is that true?" Edge just stared at him, without blinking. And after an hour, the police officer gave up. But Edge knew this wasn't going to end well, not without help. That's when he heard the snoring. Low, distant, but unmistakable. Motorcycles. Lots of motorcycles. The sound grew louder. It got closer, until it stopped outside the police station. The police officer on duty looked out the window and turned pale. "Boss, I think you need to see this." Seconds later, the front door opened, and 6 men entered, all wearing leather vests, all with the same patch on their backs. Ashen Riders, MC. The leader was a tall man with a gray beard and eyes that had seen people die. His name was Rust, and when he spoke, even the silence listened. He stopped in front of the counter. He rested his hands on the scratched marble and looked straight at the policeman. "Where's Edge?" The police officer swallowed hard. He's in custody, charged with trespassing and assault." Rust didn't blink. "Aggression against whom?" "To a citizen, a family man, Mr. Brennan." Rust let the name hang in the air. Then he turned his head to one of the men behind him, a short guy tattooed up to his neck, who was holding a tablet. "Show it to him," Rust said. The man approached and placed the tablet on the counter. On the screen was a criminal record. Snake Brennan. 3 charges of domestic violence, 2 of drug possession, 1 of child abuse that was dismissed for lack of evidence. The police officer looked at the screen, then at Rust. "That doesn't change the fact that his friend broke into his house." "He broke in," Rust said, his voice calm but sharp, "because 2 children were being beaten, and you've been called there 3 times already, and you never did anything." Silence. The policeman opened his mouth. He closed it. He had no answer. Rust leaned closer. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to release my brother, now, and you're going to open a real investigation into what's going on in that trailer. Because if something happens to those girls—" He paused, his eyes fixed on hers. "You're going to have to explain it to us. In person." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. The police officer knew this. He looked at the boss. The boss looked at Rust, and after a long silence, nodded. "Let him go." Edge left the cell 10 minutes later. Rust was waiting. He held out his hand. Edge shook it. "Thank you," Edge said quietly. Rust nodded. The girls? Social services took them away, temporarily. Edge closed his eyes. He felt the weight crushing his chest. Rust placed his hand on his shoulder. We're not finished yet, brother. This is far from over. And Edge knew he was right, because Snake was still out there. And men like him never gave up easily. Edge spent the night at the club's motel, a room with peeling wallpaper, a creaking bed, and a window overlooking the empty road. He didn't sleep. He just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his phone. I had a message from the social worker. The girls are in temporary shelter, safe for now. I'll update you. Safe for now. Those words echoed in his head like a cracked bell, because for now meant that at some point someone would decide that Snake deserved another chance. That he had changed. That he was the father after all. And Riley and Maya would return to that trailer. And this time, Snake would make sure that no one else heard them scream. Edge clenched his teeth. He grabbed his jacket. He left. Rust was standing in front of the motel, leaning against his motorcycle, smoking a cigarette. Can't sleep either? He asked without looking at me. Edge stopped beside him. He's going to get them back. Rust took a long drag. He exhaled the smoke slowly. Yes, go ahead. And we can't do anything about it? Rust finally looked at him. Legally? No. Edge understood what he didn't say. Rust threw the cigarette on the ground and stomped on it. But we don't just play by their rules, Edge. We never have. Edge looked at him, waiting. Rust sighed. The club is meeting inside. We need to vote. But if you want us to really get involved, you know what that means, right? Edge knew. It meant crossing the line once and for all. It meant doing justice their way. And it meant there would be no turning back. I know, Edge said. Rust nodded. Then come on, let's vote. Inside the motel, 6 men were gathered around an old table, coffee cups, full ashtrays, maps scattered about. When Edge entered, everyone looked at him. Rust closed the door. Edge needs us, and I think we should help. But this isn't my decision alone. It's everyone's decision. Silence. One of the men, a guy named Wrench, crossed his arms. What's the plan? Rust looked at Edge. Get the girls out of the system, permanently, and make sure Snake never gets near them again. And how do we do that without ending up in jail? Another man asked. We don't promise we won't, Rust said honestly. But we do it right, without leaving a trace, without mistakes. Wrench looked at Edge. It is worth it. Edge did not hesitate. Okay. Wrench nodded. He looked around the table. One by one, the men nodded. Then it's decided, Rust said. We'll move tomorrow night. Edge felt relief and fear at the same time, because now there was no turning back. And if something went wrong, it wouldn't just be him who would pay the price, it would be the whole club. The next day, everything fell apart. Edge woke up to the phone ringing. It was the social worker. Her voice was tense. They returned the girls. Edge felt his stomach drop. What? The judge? He reviewed the case. Snake hired a lawyer. He presented witnesses, neighbors who said he was a good father, that the girls were troubled, that you were a dangerous stranger. Edge squeezed the phone so hard that the screen almost cracked. Did they go back to his house? 2 hours ago. He hung up. He didn't wait. He didn't think. He just ran outside, got on his motorcycle and sped off. When they arrived at the trailer park, it was already too late. Snakes. Trailer was empty. Door open. Furniture overturned. Clothes scattered. But no sign of Riley, Maya, or Snake. Edge entered. He searched. He shouted their names. Nothing. He went outside. He looked around. Neighbors were looking out their windows, but no one said anything. Then he saw. On the floor, near the door, was a small bracelet. Pink. With colorful beads. He caught her. He recognized her immediately. It was Maya's time. And beside her, on the dirt floor, were tire tracks. Fresh ones. Leading towards the road, Edge ran back to the motorcycle. He called Rust. He ran away with them. Where? I don't know. But he couldn't have gone far. Rust took a deep breath on the other end of the line. We're leaving. Stay here. Edge waited. Each second felt like an hour. And then he saw something. A piece of paper stuck under a rock near the trailer door. He picked it up. He opened it. They were scribbles. Childish handwriting. Done in haste. He took us to the desert. Riley. Edge felt his blood run cold. The desert was enormous. Thousands of square kilometers. No signal. No roads. No witnesses. If Snake wanted to make them disappear, that was the perfect place. Edge got on the motorcycle. He didn't wait for the club. It just sped up, straight to the desert, knowing that every second lost could mean their lives. Edge followed the tire tracks to where the asphalt ended. After that, only dirt, rocks, dry bushes, and miles of nothing. He turned off the motorcycle. He got off. He looked around. Silence. No wind, no birds. Just heat and solitude. He picked up his cell phone. No signal. But then he heard something. Weak, distant, almost imperceptible. A scream. Acute. Childhood. Edge turned his head. He tried to pinpoint the direction. The sound was coming from somewhere to the north, maybe 2 kilometers away. He started the motorcycle again and left. The trail was uneven. Sharp rocks, loose sand. The motorcycle was skidding, but he didn't slow down. And then he saw an old van, white, parked near a rock formation. Edge stopped about 50 meters away. He got off. He approached on foot. The van's back door was slightly open. He heard voices, Snake, Riley, and the sound of someone crying. Edge looked around. He searched for something. Anything. He saw a rock. Big. Heavy. He picked up. And he approached. When he got close to the van, he heard Snake talking. You did this. This is all your fault, Riley. If you had stayed quiet, none of this would have happened. Riley's voice was shaky, but steady. You're a monster. Snake laughed. A chilling sound. And you're just like your mother. Annoying. Useless. But at least she knew when to shut up. Edge gripped the stone, and it hit the side of the van. Hard. The sound echoed. Snake stopped talking. Who's there? Edge shot again. Snake got out of the van. His eyes were wide, and when he saw Edge, he turned pale. You shouldn't be here. Edge threw the rock on the ground, at Snake's feet. But I am. Snake stepped back. His hand went to the waistband of his pants. Edge saw the glint of the metal. A weapon. Snake pulled. He pointed at Edge. Stay there. I swear I'll shoot. Edge stopped. But he didn't back down. Then shoot. Snake hesitated, and it was in that second that Riley appeared at the van door. She jumped, she ran, and she placed herself between Edge and Snake. No! Snake pointed the gun at her now. Get out of the way. But she didn't leave, and Edge saw something in her eyes that he had never seen before. Courage. And he knew that no matter what happened now, that girl would never be broken again. The desert fell silent. Only the wind, only Snake's heavy breathing, and Edge's heart pounding like a war drum. Riley stood between them, small, trembling, but steady. Riley, get out of there, Edge said, his voice low and controlled. She shook her head. If he shoots, shoot me first. Snake laughed, but it was a broken laugh. Desperate. You think I wouldn't shoot? You think I don't? Have the courage. I know you don't, Riley said, and her voice didn't tremble. Because you only hit those who can't fight back. You're a coward. Snake froze. His face turned red. The hand holding the gun trembled. Shut up, he hissed. No. And that's when he pointed the gun directly at her head. Edge moved. Fast. 2 steps. He grabbed Snake's wrist, twisted. The gun fired. The shot echoed in the desert, but it went high into the air. Snake screamed. He tried to break free, but Edge was stronger, faster, and much more motivated. He knocked Snake to the ground. The gun fell onto the sand. Edge kicked it away. Snake tried to get up, but Edge put his knee on his back. He held his head against the ground. "It's over," Edge said, his voice hoarse. Snake was spitting out sand. He was breathing with difficulty. You can't do this. I'm going to sue you. You're not going to do anything," Edge interrupted, "because you just pointed a gun at a child. And this?" He pressed harder. "This is self-defense." Snake tried to scream, but Edge covered his mouth with his hand. And then he heard the snoring. Motorcycles. 6. Maybe 7. The club had arrived. Rust was the first to get out. He looked at the scene, at Snake on the ground, at Riley standing trembling, at Maya still inside the van hugging her knees. Rust walked over to Edge. He waved. "We got it from here." Edge released Snake. He stood up. He wiped his hands on his pants. Rust looked at Snake. "Get up." Snake obeyed, staggering, now afraid. Rust crossed his arms. "You have 2 options. The first, we hand you over to the police, with the girls as witnesses, with the gun, with everything." Snake swallowed hard. "And the second one?" Rust smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "You disappear. Forever. You sign custody papers for the girls, you leave the state, and you never come back. What if I don't accept?" Rust approached, eye to eye. "So we'll make you disappear in the way we know." "How?" Silence. Snake looked around. 6 men, all of them looking at him like he was trash. He knew he had no choice. I accept." Rust nodded. One of the men pulled out a piece of paper, a custody waiver, ready to go. Snake signed, his hand trembling, and then Rust pointed to the road. "Now run." And Snake ran, like the coward he always was. 3 weeks later, Edge was sitting outside a cafe in a small town in New Mexico. He drank black coffee and looked at the empty street. Blue sky. Silence. The cell phone rang. It was Rust. "The paperwork is ready. The girls have officially been placed with a foster family. Good. Verified. Safe." Edge closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. "Are they doing well?" Riley asked. "About you." Edge felt his chest tighten. "What did you say?" "I told you that you were on the road, but that you think about them every day." "That's true," Edge said quietly. Rust remained silent for a few seconds. "You did the right thing, brother." Edge didn't respond, because he didn't know if he had done it. He had broken laws, he had threatened a man, he had put the club at risk. But when he closed his eyes, he saw Riley, standing in the middle of the desert, brave. And he knew that if he had to do it all again, he would. He hung up the phone. "The coffee is finished." He got on the motorcycle, and he headed for the road. Because that's what he did. He walked, he searched, and when he found someone in need, he stopped. Even if just for a second, even if just for a day. Because some people were meant to be saved, and others to be saved. And Edge learned that in the end, we all need someone who chooses to come back. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe now, because stories like this happen every day, and someone needs to tell them. Next video. He found a girl chained up in a basement. What he did after that changed everything. Click now, don't wait.